Is the carbon plate in a racing shoe really helping you as a non-elite or sub-elite runner? Do you really need a carbon plated shoe? And if so, how much does it help? And after all, helping for what? What do you expect of it? Nowadays, all running shoes marketing as racing shoes do incorporate a carbon fiber plate in one way or another. It's supposed to help a few percent in terms of speed, but bear in mind this was designed for elite athletes. So even though we are lucky as runners to be able to use the same material as elite athletes, which is not the case in most other sports, that does not necessarily mean that we should. So how much of this is marketing and how much of it is really applicable to you and me as average runners? Perhaps it's not only for speed performance, perhaps it's also for running economy, meaning that you should be able to maintain speed for longer because you spend less energy and also because you suffer less fatigue in your muscles and joints. Perhaps it reduces the vibrations due to the pounding and the impact on the floor, causing less micro tears in your muscles, and therefore you can run for longer and recover faster after a hard session or a long run. Or perhaps it helps with the stability of the shoe so that you can run straighter forwards and apply the force in the proper direction, so you don't need to engage stabilizing muscles so much and therefore save energy. Well, all these remains quite difficult questions to answer because all the answers are biased by the brands and marketing strategies, basically striving to sell more shoes and convince you that they are better than the others. I've seen a lot of claims for better results, but not so much rationale, not so many explanations of how the plate actually works. Actually, let me try the Vaporfly without a plate.
Yeah, so it is indeed much more unstable, and that's interesting. It allows for a lot of bending of the toes. So it does not transmit the force from the forefoot to the rear of the foot and the rest of the body unless I really crunch my toes. Apart from that, it feels like other non-plated shoes with a very soft foam, just a bit more unstable.
Yeah, so without the plate, the foam is actually very, very flexible. In fact, I think I even broke it now here. As you can see, just by trying. See, I broke the foam here. So let's consider here the different types of carbon plates. So we have different shapes, we have different positions, higher or lower in the midsole. We have different stiffness, both in bending and in torsion. And then we also have different width in the forefoot and heel. So in terms of shape, I think we can agree that there are three main flavors, all derived from the original S shape or spoon shape, which, by the way, this is the plate I extracted from my old Vaporfly 3s. So we have a spoon or S shape like this. Here in the Nitro Elite 3 is quite similar. We have an S shape. Here in the Alphafly, it's a little bit less so because of the pod that takes some space, so it's also S, but neck of the spoon here is not that pronounced. Here we have the Asics Metaspeed Sky. This one is quite flat. Yeah, the plate is actually here and it goes like this. It is pretty flat. It's still kind of an S, but much flatter. This is the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro version 1. Here you can see it's also pretty flat, although this is different because of the geometry of the shoe and the amount of stack. This is the Vaporfly, so that's this one. And this is the Asics Metaspeed Edge Tokyo. Unlike the Sky, the Edge does have a spoon-shaped carbon plate, as you can see here. Pretty pronounced. I don't have any example of C-shaped carbon plate here, but if I remember well, the plate in the New Balance Supercomp Fuel Cell is rather C-shaped. So in terms of stiffness, well, some are stiffer than others, and also interestingly enough, some are more stable than others in torsion. So like this, so it helps like taking turns, and also it helps in the supination to pronation movements. Like when you strike, you do some rolling movement like this. It helps stabilizing the foot. And nowadays it seems commonly accepted that pronation is not necessarily a problem and doesn't need correction. At least if you try to correct it, it does not really improve the injury rate. So
And talking specifically about stiffness in torsion, some shoes incorporate other technologies that I don't have here, like the Adidas, that have so-called energy rods that are like separate rods that act pretty much the same in the backward to forward plane, but not so much so in torsion, as they are separate rods. So they do allow for this kind of rolling movements, which is not the case here. And then we have distinct positioning of the plates inside the midsole, so rather low to the ground or higher in the midsole. So there is more foam, like in this one, the plate is here, so there is more foam in between the plate and the outsole. In this sense, my personal feeling is that the more foam there is in between the plate and the outsole, the more bounce you're gonna get when you stride with your forefoot. However, again, I haven't found a lot of rationale about this. Now, it does not necessarily mean that this configuration is better, because it's not only about the foam, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then there are plates of different length. Now, I tend to think that ideally the plate should be full length. I don't really see why a manufacturer would want to cut the plate. I know some shoes have a plate only in the heel or only in the forefoot, or some have a shorter plate, like only up to here. But I don't really see why. It's not really to save on weight or anything. For me, it should be full length. About extending the plate past the toes, some shoes are experimenting with that, like the Puma Fast R Nitro Elite 3. I have not tested them, but I can see how it could bring some advantage during the toe off phase, if you have strong enough toes and feet, because it increases the liver here. So the more liver you have, the more you're gonna be able to transmit to the ankle and the Achilles and the calves and the rest of your body. So it's like having bigger shoes. So in theory, it could increase your stride length, but I think this is definitely not for everybody. So what does the plate do? Well, arguably it does nothing but enable the foam to do its job by providing some stability to the shoe, especially sideways, and especially in the forefoot, which is where the plate is wider and does not allow bending like this, or does not allow torsion. Conversely, it does not provide a lot of stability in the heel where the plate is narrower. But yeah, you're not supposed to heel strike, so okay. Second thing that the plate does, which is probably more interesting, is that it transmits the bounciness of the foam in the forefoot. So the forefoot bounces here, and it transmits the bounce back to the rest of your foot and the ankle and the leg, which is located here, and the rest of your body. So it's like your foot becomes like one stiff piece, and the bounciness that occurs in the forefoot is transmitted in one piece to the rest of the body, as opposed to not having a plate, and then you would make ground contact with your toes, but then your arch will collapse and absorb the power, and will not transmit the bounce back to the ankle and the leg. In this way, the plate assists the arch of the foot in doing its job of transmitting the force to the ankle, and reduces metatarsal strain, metatarsal here. The third effect of the carbon plate, which is for me the most important one, is let's say a springboard effect. So when you strike the ground with your forefoot, allegedly, at some point you will exert a lot of force due to your own body weight, and also the power you put in your stride on the forefoot. So even though this plate is quite rigid in the forefoot, it will sort of flatten out a little bit, and let's say stick or anchor itself to the ground and serve as a reference point. And then when you go through your gait cycle, you sort of move forward. Your leg is here on the heel, and you move forward. As you can see, the plate bends down, and then when you move forward and toe off, it releases the energy and thrusts you like upward forward. So you get a springboard effect like this, right? When you leave the ground. So the plate helps you jumping forward in conjunction with the work of the Achilles tendon that is here, that is also tightened and releases the energy when it recoils. So it assists the Achilles tendon. But you get this sort of assistance from the plate. Yeah, springboard. So for this you obviously need an S-shaped plate with a flexible neck here and some room underneath the heel for it to be able to bend. So obviously a flat plate like this one cannot bend down because it's already flat, so it does not work as a springboard. It provides other things, but not so much as a springboard. The plate in the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro is also very flat, but it does work in a slightly different way because there is that much amount of stack in the midfoot. It actually bends quite a bit when you apply a lot of force on it, and then when you release it sort of jumps up a little bit. So it's a different kind of springboard, more like a trampoline perhaps, but I don't find it very efficient. A C-shape plate would work as well, but typically a C-shape has the curvature here further back in the midfoot. So when you stride, it tends to provide the bounciness a little bit too early, I believe, and then you bounce too vertically or even backwards instead of bouncing forward. Also, a C-shape does not assist the arch of the foot that much. So the S-shaped plate does not only assist the arch of the foot, but also the Achilles by providing support just at the exact moment when the Achilles is more tense and releases the energy. And finally, I believe the S-shaped plate is also beneficial to the Achilles because the Achilles accumulates the load and the tension more progressively as you go through the gait cycle because of the resistance of the plate, as opposed to not using a plate, and then the Achilles would be tensed much more abruptly, whereas with the plate it gets the tension more progressively in time. The fourth effect of the plate is in relation with the toe off. So the plate assists the toes in the push-off phase. If you're able to do that, like push with your toes. So if there was no plate, you would have to have very stiff toes and like push down into the ground in order to jump forward or thrust you forward somehow. I have to admit I'm not able to do that, and less so for long distances, but the plate assists the toes in that, so you don't have to generate that much force with your toes as the plate does the job. Again, it's more a job of transmitting the impulse from the front of the foot to the back of the foot, so it's the rigidity of the plate, which otherwise you would have to provide with your own toes. To be honest, I don't think there is much performance gains to be obtained by pushing with your toes like that, and that would probably be at the cost of higher injury risk, so I'm not sure. But yeah, there are some plates like in the Fuma Fast R Elite 3 that is longer than normal, so it protrudes out from the forefoot, and it's like it's like having a bigger foot. So it increases the lever between the ground contact point and where your leg is. So the bigger the lever, arguably the longer your stride length and the faster you would run. But again, I think you need very strong toes to do that, and that's certainly not for everybody. And by the way, like I just said, the bigger your feet, the bigger the lever between the contact point, like the front of the foot, the toes, and the heel or the ankle where your leg is anchored, and then the rest of your body. So if that lever is bigger, you will get a longer stride length and faster speed. But also the bigger the lever, the more strain on your Achilles, because it will get more tension. So the plate is there to alleviate the Achilles somehow, more crucially so if you have long big feet than if you have small feet. Now notice that what the plate is not meant to do is to bend forward like this. It seems obvious when you look at it, but it's not meant to, let me take this one for instance. What you typically see in shoe reviews, people showcase the plate by bending the shoe like that, and then releasing it, it jumps, yeah, right. But that's not how we run. I mean, we don't bend the forefoot like this. We don't bend our toes. It's basically impossible to do, and even more impossible if you take into account the pronounced rocker here. It's just not how we run. So yeah, that's a good way perhaps to showcase the rigidity of the plate, but it should not lead you to think that this is how it works. It works in the other way around. It bends downwards. So perhaps a better way to try the plate, or try to sense the rigidity of the plate in the shop, is to somehow fix the forefoot to the ground and then apply some force downwards in the heel and try to sense the rigidity and how much of a springboard effect it has, if you can do that in the shop. However, with a flat plate like this one, obviously it doesn't work as a springboard downwards, but rather the other way around. So it's supposed to bend in the toe area upwards and then release the energy by pushing into the ground when it gets released. But for that you need a super strong stride. You need to reach quite far behind with your leg extended in order to bend the plate up. You really need to apply a lot of force, like your stride length should be around 1.8 meter, which is something I cannot even dream of. And by the way, as far as I can sense, you really need to apply a lot of force. The recoil, yeah, it's not that spectacular. And by the way, it's likely to cause some damage in the foam in this area. So what do you need to take advantage of it for speed? Well, first you need to land on your forefoot. This, although a little bit of heel striking arguably would be acceptable insofar you strike with the heel but then immediately roll and really apply the force here in the forefoot. So you slam the ground with your forefoot, even though it's after striking the ground with your heel. As long as you have this position here where the weight of your body is on your forefoot, that anchors the plate to the ground and allows for this bending, that should be good. Then you need a decent amount of ankle dorsiflexion, which is the angle here between the leg and the foot. So the shorter this angle, the more dorsiflexion. So this is dorsiflexion and this is antiflexion. So you need some dorsiflexion first in order to really be able to land under the center of mass of your body, because the leg is slightly inclined forward. So this angle here is rather short, less than 90 degrees. And second, because in order to get benefit from the springboard effect of the plate, you need to reach a position where your leg is behind your body just before toe off, where the Achilles is extended as much as possible and the plate is also extended. So that means your foot must be as low to the ground as possible, like that. So your body is here, and you're going to toe off forward. So that's the end of your gait cycle. So the more dorsiflexion you can reach here, like with the leg extended behind your body, the more springboard effect you will get from the plate, and the more recoil you will get from the Achilles here. Third, as I just said, you need to extend the leg as far behind your body as possible. So that means you need quite a lot of strength in your quads, your hamstring, your glutes, and also quite a bit of mobility in your hips. So that's where it makes sense to stretch your psoas, for instance. And fourth, obviously you need very strong calves and Achilles tendons. Now, can the plate be detrimental in terms of injuries? Well, because of the plate, there is a much harder and drier contact time with the ground that provokes more vibrations in your muscles, in your calves, quads, and so on. And the vibrations affect your muscles, can cause micro tears, can cause fatigue. They also affect the joints, and they can also lead to loss of elasticity in the tissues. Also, as I said earlier, you need strong calves, strong Achilles tendons, strong toes, strong arch and everything. So you need to complement running with quite a bit of strength training and running in other type of shoes as well. If you only run in carbon plated shoes, then you may lose strength in the muscles that the plate provides assistance for, because the plate does part of the job, so the muscles may become weaker. Also, racing shoes are quite narrow in general because they are lightweight and streamlined, and this typically brings some stability issues, especially sideways. Yeah, narrow racing shoes are not very supportive in general. So again, that means you need to strength train your little stabilizing muscles, like for instance the glute med is a good example, to mention just one. But perhaps the most dangerous thing after all is that because there's a plate and it's supposed to do something for you and it's supposed to be fast, you know, you're gonna start using the shoe in an inadequate way. You're gonna start exaggerating your stride and so on. And if you exaggerate something, that obviously comes with increased injury risks. Also, there is a risk that you may keep using the shoe for too long after the foam is dead, because you know, well, they are expensive shoes, so you think you might still use them for training and so on. But of course, it's not the plate's fault, but it's in general not a good idea to keep using the shoe when the foam is old and should be replaced. That happened to me with a pair of Vaporfly 1. I kept using them past 500 kilometers for training and I got injured. So if you're unsure of when you should replace your shoes, then I suggest you watch this video. Next week I'll explain how the rocker works, so don't forget to subscribe, and in the meantime, as always, if you run around, remember to look around. Ciao!